Chris, welcome inside the Crazy Ant Farm, man. How are you?
Hi, I'm happy to be at the Crazy Ant Farm. I love ants, so I'm looking forward to see more ants.
Fantastic. Well, we're the craziest kind, so I hope you're ready.
Exactly. Already one of our favorites.
Man, we are super excited to talk to you and have you on the show so much. I mean, two huge kind of big deals, like most recently, the Gray Man and then Amsterdam. I mean, talk about two solid casts and two solid movies that you're involved in. That's awesome. And the history about how you kind of got started. That's going to be really interesting to talk about. So, I mean, we've got a lot to do.
Yes, sir.
What we like to do, though, is kind of just give you a little introduction to the fans who might not be familiar with how you are or who you are. Let's talk about how you got started in the industry. Was it something that you kind of always knew that you wanted to do, or did you kind of fall into it? Because we think that there might be a Laker that had a little something to do with that, right? Is that right?
Yeah, there's a little twist in my story because I did think about it when I was a kid. I wanted to be a rock star. I wanted to have a rock and roll band, and I started a band called Army of Darkness. We were playing heavy metal music mixed with progressive rock that I was hugely influenced by at the time. But when I was 17, our band just broke up, and didn't know what to do with my life. So the label asked me to write some reviews for them, and I started writing. I started working as a writer. I didn't want to compromise myself as a music lover to write about pop music or to write about music disco music that I'm not passionate about, and I couldn't support myself from just writing about classic rock music or indie rock music. So another hobby I had as a kid was soccer. So I started writing about soccer. And then because basketball started getting some popularity in Poland, and I liked basketball, I've learned how to love it later. I started being like an NBA expert, and they started sending me to the United States to cover NBA games to work on that field. I was 19 when I first came, met Kobe Bryant, who later was influential in me kind of turning my tide back to what I was, I think, born to do.
Fantastic. Yeah. So that's interesting. So what was the first time like in the States? Was it like, was that quite the culture shock for you, or like, was it like, okay, this is all in?
I'm gonna give you one story. I hope I'm not gonna get arrested. It's the 19th. But I had my pass because it was an All-Star weekend in Madison Square Garden in New York. I had my pass as a media member, but I was 19 at the time. And I think Mexican and Spanish TV reporters took me with them to a flash dancers club.
Oh.
And they didn't check my ID, and I was 19, but I did get it because I had the pass, right? So I did get in. Yeah, hopefully I'm not gonna get into trouble.
No,
right.
Well, that's quite the first experience. Welcome to America.
That was my first experience. That was literally my second day in the United States.
Well, hey, that's a story to tell right there, right?
Yeah. On my third day, I think I went to a concert and I saw Stevie Wonder playing live. And then I went to a bunch of different events in New York, and I was absolutely overwhelmed. Oh, no, actually, you know what? My first experience was my friend picked me up from the airport. He took me to the 2nd Street in New York to an Indian restaurant. And for the first time in my life, I had food so spicy that I started choking after 3 minutes. So that was my first experience in the United States.
That's awesome. Hilarious. I love that, though. I love that. And I'm curious, how did you get started into acting itself? What did you have like a mutual friend who was also acting and said, oh, this could actually be a career? Or did you just kind of stumble upon a casting call, or how did that go about?
So, I advanced pretty quickly in sports writing. I was 20, I was already fully employed. That's why I never graduated from college, because they were sending me all over the world, and I kept pushing my exams. But, my contracts, and other income from, for example, collaborating with Playboy, collaborating with BBC, was substantial. So I made a decision to fully focus on that when I was 20, 21, 22, 23. And I kept going. I worked as a reporter, traveled all around the world. I was always 2-3 times in the United States every year. And then I think I was 28 when I accepted a job from the biggest publishing company in Poland, who were starting a new project, a new newspaper. And they gave me a really good contract. And I went there. And after 3 months, they decided that the sales are not as good as they anticipated, and they will get rid of this one publication that doesn't generate much income. So pretty much from day to day, they told everybody they're closing the shop, and they gave me 6 months in advance of my salary. And at the time, I got myself a nice new apartment in Warsaw, which is the capital of Poland. I partially grew up in Germany, but in Polish family. Then I went back to Poland, and that's where I was working in my 20s. So I was 28. I remember, kind of shocked leaving the publishing company and the building, the headquarters, and like thinking, okay, for the last 8 years, I was working nonstop. I was traveling all around the world. I pretty much focused just on that.
Right.
Take some time off for myself. And on the way out, I saw they had a collection of 25 best movies of all time. So I grabbed that collection. I ordered a home cinema system. They installed it in my apartment. And I took a week off and I started watching movies for the first time in my life, because I was never into movies. It's like all my friends wanted to go to movies. I wanted to go to concerts or games or play sports or whatever.
Right.
And I was never into going into movies. Whenever a girl wanted me to take her to movies, that was our last date.
Okay.
And then here I am, 28, and I started watching. I remember Goodfellas.
Oh, yeah.
If somebody told me back then, when I was on that couch, not knowing anything about movies, not knowing anything about acting, that 15 years later I'm gonna work with Robert De Niro, I would think that person is crazy.
Yeah.
But pretty much, I was in a certain, because that some period of my life has just ended, and I was in the kind of a transitional mode where I was looking for my next challenge. And somehow in that moment, I got that bug into movie making. And first I thought, because of my writing experience, I'm going to be a screenwriter.
Right.
So when I came to Los Angeles just for a few weeks to look around, I was thinking this will be my path. But then I went to see Al Pacino live in a Salome in Los Angeles, in a theater, in a play, with unknown actress at that time named Jessica Chastain.
Oh.
Yeah.
And after seeing that, step by step, it started growing me that maybe to be a better screenwriter, I should take some acting classes to understand the process. And once I started taking acting classes, when I moved to Los Angeles in 2008, I'll tell you what was it inspired by. Then I decided this is what I want to do. But it wasn't right away. It was growing in me substantially. Like even in my early years living here, I was still going to games. I was still working a little bit as a writer. But then I did some stand-up comedy. Then I started working at the Comedy Store for a few years. And then I knew that this is what I need to do.
Oh, wow. I mean, that is very interesting to see how your path progressed. And I mean, a lot of different things to unpack there, especially with the whole, wanting to be a writer, but it also might help to take some acting classes, because I hear a lot of different people who are really famous actors say that, their actual aspirations are being a director or being a producer. One that comes to mind to me is Jonah Hill. He got into acting.
Directed me.
Exactly. He got into acting because he wanted to be a director, and he wanted to be an actor's director. So he knew how to talk to them and knew how to direct them in each way. So I love that, because there's all these different learning techniques in the entertainment industry that you can keep yourself evolving, which I think you're so brilliant at, picking up this craft to try to learn different things about the industry.
Well, and it's always interesting to hear people's paths also, and how much chance or fate has to do with it, right? Like you're on your way out of the job, you have no idea what you're doing, you just know you're going to take some break, you're going to do some personal time, and here's this thing, 25 greatest movies. It's just a random thing that happens to be there that changes the course of your life. And that's so amazing to me sometimes, how it's just so random. You don't realize this thing, I'm going to grab these, I'm going to go home and start watching movies, and it's going to change my life. That's so amazing to me to hear how people get there, right?
I'll tell you the second part of that, like a moment, like a hurrah moment, like eureka moment more, I would say. So when I came here for 3 weeks in 2007, and I knew Kobe Bryant over the years of covering the NBA, we had a very nice, friendly relationship, then it became, I would say, even more than friendly for a while. And he was almost like a mentor to me eventually. I remember I was already thinking about changing my life. And listen, I was 30 years old. I had a very good, stable life, very good, stable career. It was a huge risk to take.
Oh, for sure.
To move, to change everything completely, especially that I was very comfortable in my big new apartment, just watching movies. I didn't have to work that much. I was working partially for television. I could do some broadcasting and collect paychecks, and I would be fine for the next 30, 40 years. But I came here, and it was this thought was growing that this is the challenge. And I asked Kobe for advice. It was after the game against Seattle Supersonics, Kevin Durant's rookie season. He played for the Supersonics. And we are walking from the locker room to the parking lot in the old Staples Center, which is quite a walk. It's like 10, 12-minute walk. I asked him, Kobe, if you can give me an advice. He's like, sure. So I have a stable career, stable life, and I can continue to do that. Or should I take a big risk and move here and start in show business? And he said, what is your heart telling you? I said, my heart is telling me to try. He said, always follow your heart. And I did. Like literally that conversation was like, it made a decision really. Because I was torn. I was 50-50. That conversation made me decide to do that.
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, he is so inspirational in so many different people's lives, and especially mine as well. So, I mean, just to hear that, to hear, firsthand experience on a conversation and how he was and just how, inspiring he was just to a single person. He's not even, trying to present himself to the mass audiences. He's talking to you one-on-one, and I can imagine that was a very special feeling.
Yeah, and at the time, it was a little bit of a different ball game because like those seasons when the Lakers were playing 3 straight finals, I was still at almost every game. And they didn't allow that much media into the locker room. It was only like 20, 30 people max after the game. So we were all very friendly. We developed friendships. I had a lot of friends on that team to the point where I first moved. And I started in acting. I did my first steps. I remember I was a featured extra in Valentine's Day when the movie came out. The guys on the Lakers team that were at the time, I think that it was NBA Finals. They were like, "Oh, Martin, we all saw you." Something weird. Lamar Odom, all those guys. That was funny. And when I finally ended up doing a small role on the Lakers show, directed by Jonah Hill, the first comment when I posted it on my Instagram account was from Sasha Vujacic, and a very nice comment, by the way.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, there's so many different aspects, and it's kind of full circle, you coming and being on Winning Time for HBO Max, because I feel like, it's starting with Kobe and then you actually ending up on that show in LA. I feel like I said, it's very much full circle, and I can imagine kind of like a out-of-body experience, right? Because you see like where you've basically started over, because that's what you did. You started your whole life over, and you're making it happen. And that's what I think, the podcast is built for the up-and-comers trying to break into the entertainment industry. And we really want to press that little point is no matter what you're doing now, if you don't feel like it's right, it's okay to completely press that restart button, and you can make it happen as long as you're making yourself happy. And that's what it's all about.
And 100%.
And you know what? Sometimes it just takes that person, right? Like if you're having that self-doubt, this is what you want, but you're still kind of like, hey, I can do maybe this and be okay, and I'm comfortable in it. Sometimes it just takes that one person to say, you can do it. Follow your heart. You can do it. And it just somehow makes all that doubt go away. And what? I think so, and this person thinks so I can go do that. And sometimes that's just that one little person of encouragement saying, go for it. That's all it takes.
I agree with you 100%, and it goes both ways, because whenever I hear stories, and I'll tell you this. So when my first school was Stella Adler Academy. Then I was at the Beverly Hills Playhouse. So from Stella Adler Academy, from my entire year, I would say only me and another guy are still full-time working actors.
Oh, wow.
And the other guy is more of a stunt guy. Most of those people quit, and some of them, at the time, it felt like they were more talented or at least more advanced than I was. And I believe it's very important who you listen to, and that can have a big impact on your path, because whenever I sometimes speak to people who quit acting, they often give me the same kind of an answer, like, oh, friends were laughing at me, oh, people were saying that I'm no good, people were saying that I'm not progressing enough, that that I should get a job, and it's usually that.
Right.
So that somebody tells them something that discourages them from continuing that path.
Exactly.
But if you have someone who encourages you and your will to really do it is strong, then that pushes you over the edge.
For sure. And I feel like a lot of people nowadays, they want that instant gratification. They want to be an instantaneous star. But this industry specifically is a very slow burn type of industry. It's for the people who love the process, because you're not going to be that overnight star. That person who you just found out about like yesterday, yeah, they've been doing it for about 10 years. So, I mean, it's those types of situations it's not for the fame or the money. It's for the art and the love of the craft. And that's what we try to preach to our audience, because if you're getting into this for the wrong reasons, you're going to be very unhappy, and you got to figure out what makes you happy. But if you love the passion, if you love just that little tiny millisecond of being in the room with somebody else that you've seen on TV or in a movie, like if that will make your whole entire year, then you're in the right industry. And I'm sure you've had a lot of those instances.
100% on both ends. For me, a big part of the experience was, and I think almost like a transitional mode that I was in between my old life and present life, was when I decided to work at the Comedy Store. When I worked at the Comedy Store for 3 years, I've seen all the greats, all the bads, and all the ugly at the same time. Wonderful place, wonderful people, extremely talented people, but also struggling people with mental health issues.
Yep.
Right.
A bunch of people I knew committed suicides when I was at the time when I was there, including Brody Stevens, was one of the most lovely human beings I can remember. And you understand like that people are at their vulnerable place often.
Most definitely. And I mean, we actually try to talk about mental health a lot on the podcast. And I mean, with it being an industry like this, where, there is the high of the highs and the low of the lows, how do you keep your mental health in check and stay positive and stay moving forward?
Yeah. It's important to have, good support system, friends that are like good friends, other friend actors who give you that affirmation, and you give them that affirmation. That is very important.
Yep. And to remind each other, we've had several guests on, and we've kind of adapted this as well, is that instead of looking at it as an industry built on rejection, which so many people think, right? Like if you don't get the role and you didn't get that, and it doesn't, that you're being rejected. But we now look at it as it's an industry built on selection. You weren't rejected that time. You just weren't selected. It doesn't mean that you didn't do a great job. It doesn't mean you're not a good actor. It doesn't mean you're not worthy. It just means at that particular day, at that particular time, that's not what they were looking for. But you're going to be what they're looking for at some point. And if you can keep it an aspect like that, it's selection, not rejection. I think that goes a long way with keeping the positivity and the outlook of this is what I do for a living and it's all going to be okay, right?
Yeah, and it's important to work on your skill set, and that also comes from me watching Kobe. He always worked on his skill set, even when he was the best player in the game.
Yep.
Whenever I can learn another language, and I can speak 8, and that helps me a lot in getting roles, especially voiceover roles.
For sure.
So whenever I can add, like I'm learning Spanish right now because a friend told me that there are a lot of people in South America that look just like me in Cuba or Argentina, and I can get those roles.
Right.
I don't have to. It's not I don't have to look like a stereotypical Latino macho guy, right?
Right.
Exactly.
To get some roles potentially that are for like Brazilian people that look just like me. So I started learning Spanish, and I want to continue to develop different skills. I asked my friend of mine with whom I went to Beverly Hills Playhouse, who became a very successful stunt guy. I asked him, next time you're in town, please take me to the place where you guys train. I wanna pick up some basic knowledge of stunt work, and then do my own stunts at least.
Yeah.
So there's always a way to improve, like whenever I hear from actors that they just sit at home and complain, that's not going to get you anywhere.
Nope. And if you ever get to that level where you think there isn't something for you to still learn, you're done. I mean, right? You always have to keep growing. You always have to keep learning. And you must be doing something right, because I'm just going to say, when you land in a project that's got names like Dinero and John David Washington and Margot Robbie and Christian Bale, you're doing pretty good. I mean, that's a solid A-list cast right there that you've kind of joined and become into with Amsterdam. Talk about that a little bit. Well, I know you briefly touched on, oh, wow, if you had told me I'm going to be working with Dinero after watching him all those years ago and everything. Talk about that process and the casting process and what it's like to work on a scale that large with a cast like that.
I'll give you a little bit of a pre-talk, what led to that. So right before pandemic, I think I was on a very good run, because I just did Red Notice. On the last day before pandemic, I was flying to Los Angeles when they were closing everything, and a driver who picked me up from the airport took me straight to a grocery store where there was almost nothing left.
Oh wow!
So I remember, I got into pandemic pretty much in a shock mode, where it's like, oh, I was on set and now nothing is happening. And then right before that, I did Black Lighting, I did NCIS I did lead on an indie film and worked on the voiceover on Black Widow. So I was working on stuff and I was getting into a rhythm, and now everything is shut down.
Right.
So I maybe took a week off, and then I just started working, started going on all Zoom casting calls, all like groups between actors, working on languages, working on this, working on that. I did another Call of Duty from home, where they sent me the equipment and I was recording it from home. So I never stopped really working during the pandemic, and I saw that a lot of my friend actors didn't do anything in 2020.
Right.
They were just sitting on the couch collecting unemployment. There's nothing wrong about that. Mm-hmm. I'm not judging. I'm absolutely not judging. I felt like this is the moment for me to actually take a step forward.
Yeah.
To take a step forward, because it's almost like in this film with Adam Sandler, where you put the pause button, everybody's paused.
Yep.
You can keep working, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I knew that once it will start opening up, I felt ready to jump right away. And Amsterdam happened by accident, but right after Amsterdam, I did recurring on Stranger Things, literally following week. Then Better Call Saul, Gray Man, Lakers Show, and The Staircase. Right. So I went on a run of 4 or 5 months working on stuff. And I think if I didn't do anything during pandemic prior to Amsterdam, I wouldn't be able to have a run like that. Mm-hmm. But because I continued to stay in shape, it led me into that break that I got.
Most definitely. And I love how two things. I love how you're always looking for the opportunity. You're always looking for different things to learn. And it's not something like, woe is me. It's an opportunity to take time to learn something else to help build your resume, and another opportunity to flex your creative muscle. And I mean, you doing all that stuff back to back, I mean, that really shows the dedication and commitment you have to this craft, because like you said, a lot of people were either not working or barely working, maybe booking 1 or 2 things and not even trying to do anything else, not trying to pick up a camera and film themselves, or just trying to, like I said, flex that creative muscle. But kudos to you, man, because like I said, we're all about positivity and re-encouragement, and I think a lot of our listeners are going to really enjoy this interview, because they're seeing that everything is an opportunity. You don't have to sit down and think that it's a failure. You can always look at the positive side and keep moving forward, and that's so important.
And that we talk about all the time that there are so many things in life that happen that you have no control over, right? Pandemic, nobody had any control. Nobody knew it was coming. But life is either good or bad depending on the decisions that you make. It's like this situation you had no control over, but how you deal with that situation you have total control over. And you chose to make it a positive instead of a negative. You chose to say, I'm not going to let this thing make me sit on the couch and woe is me. I'm going to go after it, and I'm going to keep doing what I can do, and I'm going to come out of it better. And I think that's the best advice anybody can get. It's like, you decide whether this thing that you can't control role is good or bad because you control how you deal with it. And you did a fantastic example of the way to do it right? Just look at the positive and go, I'm doing this. And so,
I'll give you another positive. I'll give you another positive regarding Amsterdam, and it's a kind of story I never said before, but I feel like it aligns to what we're talking about. So it was in the middle of pandemic. It was February 2021, and like I said, a lot of people were just staying at home, and I kind of felt like this could be, there are opportunities out there because they started filming, and if you somehow make yourself useful, there will be opportunities out there just because of COVID, because of restrictions, because of the fact that they're limiting number of people on set and so on and so on. Like, I'll tell you honestly, I went initially to the set of Amsterdam to help with German.
Oh, wow.
Like, yeah.
And I was doing a good job helping one of the actresses. She really liked me and I was helpful, and she called David, and David asked me, you're my German guy. Can you tell me in German, Tom Brady is the greatest football player of all time? And I said in German exactly that. And he's like, you're hired. And he put me in the scene that was initially just pretty much for a reference. Mm-hmm. But when he asked me to give off-camera action towards, and it was filmed a little bit differently than you saw in the final footage, because initially it was before the speech. Mm-hmm. So you had like Christian Bale, Anya Taylor-Joy, Rami Malek, and Robert Dinero. And Robert Dinero is about to give the speech, and then they see me and other guys under the stage, and he is asking who those guys are, and then we start screaming off camera at them. And I'm like, wait a second, there's Robert De Niro, there's Christian Bale, there's Rami Malek, Anya Taylor-Joy, and Margot Robbie too, and Mike Myers was behind. I'm gonna use that as an opportunity to really show that I can act.
Exactly.
Yeah. Hell yeah, you are.
Ballistic. I went 150% rage. And guess what? David saw that, flipped the cameras, and decided, okay, now we're gonna show this guy and his friends. And then, this is interesting, because I saw it was on the day 2. I saw that he's doing a lot of improv, a lot of coming up with new lines, telling people what to do. So then he's like, this kind of works. Let's make them yell at each other. Let's bring Chris Rock and David Washington and have like a battle and have a fight after that and create all the havoc and chaos. So it all pretty much came out of pure improvisation, and I just shot my shot, being kind of, out of the script. It wasn't in the script. I just shot my shot, and somehow he liked it, and he kept it, and I was on set for a week after that. And there was another guy who played one of the patients that was booked for a day. They kept him for 20 days. We are friends now.
Wow.
So there were opportunities, that David gave those chances to people that he saw like they can bring some value to the project by being unique.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And sometimes that's what you need to do to go like an extra step, extra mile. Like, listen, this is my opportunity. I'm gonna take a risk. I'm gonna go overboard maybe a little bit, but I'm gonna try it. Let's see what happens.
Well, and to bring it full circle back to your sports days, right? So many of the greats, Michael Jordan, Wayne Gretzky, all of them, what are they always saying? You miss every shot you don't take. So if you've got the opportunity, you see those guys, you fucking take the shot, right?
Yeah, 100%. And after that happened, I got my contract, and I did the film, and I still have that call sheet from the last day that is always whenever I have any doubts, I look at that call sheet and I'm like, okay, I belong to this.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Exactly.
So that gave me extra confidence to book like from auditions, to book Stranger Things, Better Call Saul, Staircase, and all those other things, because it was like a game changer for me, not in terms of the way I'm being seen by casting directors or producers, but for me internally, for my own assessment of myself as an actor. That was a breaking point in terms of like, I can really do this.
Most definitely.
Full time and just this.
Exactly.
I don't have to think like, maybe I can only have a little bit of a career. No, I can have a career.
I love that.
Yeah, man, you're making it happen. I'm just saying, like, and I mean, going back to thinking about, you know, the country and coming over here, you're literally the definition of the American dream.
Oh, for sure.
Like, you came over here and you just took it by storm. You're literally breaking into the entertainment industry and killing it, making connections, taking chances, not staying inside of a tiny little box. Kudos to you, man. I mean, this is very inspiring. So I really appreciate you taking out some time of your evening and just coming on the show and getting crazy with this, because your experiences specifically are going to help that next person break into the entertainment industry. So we cannot thank you enough for that.
Oh, thank you so much. And listen, it's about each person's personal path. Like, you cannot compare your experience to other actors' experience. Everybody is different. Everybody has their own unique way. So it's like the common mistake that people sometimes do in this business is they're comparing, like, oh, I'm not at the Brad Pitt level. I'm not at the Tom Cruise level. Well, there's one Tom Cruise, there's one Brad Pitt, but there's also one Mike Johnson, one whatever.
Exactly.
Christian Smith.
Yes.
From Maryland. There's also only one.
That's right.
I love that, though. And again, man, thank you so much for coming on the show. And it's all about social media now. So where can people follow you?
So I'm on Instagram, Martin_Harris LA.
Oh, fantastic. Easy enough.
Exactly. We'll be sure to direct everybody your way. And again, man, thank you so much for coming on the show. Open invite. Anytime you ever want to come back on, just reach out, and you got an open slot, man.
It was so much fun talking to you guys, and thank you for all the kind words that you said.
Well, and thank you for all the kind words and all the inspiration. Like I said, everybody does have to follow their own path, but I think you have inspired them to do that, right? You might be that one person that made somebody today that hears this interview decide to do it, and it doesn't get any better than that, man.
Yeah, man, and listen, if someone decides to do it, they have to understand it's not an easy path, and if they expect like instant gratification, that might happen, that might not happen. It's exactly. Not about that. It's all about trying to get better and trying to just get stuff done.
Yep.
Exactly. Completely agree. Well, listen, take care, and we'll be talking to you soon, man.
Absolutely.
Thank you, man. You have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Man, like I said, he's literally the definition of the American dream.
Yeah, I mean, he is like, he's the prime example of how to get it done. We talk about it all the time, that in life shit happens.
Exactly.
But you decide whether it's bad or good by what the choices that you make. And this is a guy who, no matter what, he lost his job, he decides to take a chance to come over here.
Yep.
Things didn't go the way he wants. He decides to take another chance and talk to somebody. He sees an opportunity. He's like, yeah, I'm supposed to be stuck under the stage, but I'm fucking taking a chance, and I'm gonna scream and holler and get seen. And that's the way you do it. Like we talk about, don't be in the comfort zone. Step out of that comfort zone. Step out of that box and take a chance, and just you decide. And man, yeah, the perfect example, man.
Exactly. Thank you again, Martin Harris, for coming on the show.